Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2. Sound to the net. 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the Buddha Broadcasting Network. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're not getting anything there yet? How's that now? 1, 2, that's good. Let's try this one. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3, good. Yay. There. Good morning. I have an idea. Would you be willing to stand up and move this way, including some people come and sit up here, rather than be down there and up here? You don't have to, but those of you that would, maybe Jim, come sit up here. And there. That's going to feel very different, isn't it, for me? Phew, yeah, it's better. It always seems a little pretentious to be up here and that's different. Wow. Phew. Actually, it took it took several years, maybe 5 or, oh, Gary, hi. Before I would even sit up here, for so many years in my teaching, we always sat in a circle. That a circle is a very, it's a very wholesome way of being. It's like we're in council together, and it's not one person, usually a male, sitting up at the front on some kind of a elevated position. And while someone does have to play this role, and I'm very privileged and grateful to do so, I want to do everything we can to remember that we're all in this together. Really, I too am working on a rather strange human mind that is, still has a bit of work to do. So who's here for the first time today? Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Well, welcome. And as I always say to newcomers, I hope it's worth getting up on a Sunday morning when you could have stayed in bed or done something else. And my actual wish is that if this community is a fit for you, I hope that your decision to come this morning transforms your life. Because that's something that this practice can do, and does a lot. Please raise your hand if you have the sense this practice has transformed your life. Never done this. Whoa, that's remarkable. Were you all paid for this? Right. So just before I walked in, I got a text from my wife, "Your wallet is here on the table." That's handy. Turning off the internet on this. Please join me in turning off the internet for the rest of our lives. For those of us that have 11 devices, remember to turn off several. Okay. So, my plan today is to do our usual morning, the 40 minutes of sitting with a little guided meditation. Then Jim will do Qigong and some announcements, and then I'm going to speak about skillful effort. sixth factor of the Eightfold Path, which is talk number 8 or 9 of a series on the Eightfold Path that are watchable on YouTube. So, yeah, in that regard, there's a poem I want to use. Oh, desktop. Hafiz is. Oh. A poem from Hafiz. You carry all the ingredients to turn your life into a nightmare. Don't mix them. You have all the genius to build a swing in your backyard for God. That sounds like a hell of a lot more fun. Let's start laughing, drawing blueprints, gathering our talented friends. I will help you with my divine lyre and my drum. Hafiz will sing 1,000 words you can take into your own hands, like golden saws and silver hammers, polished teakwood, strong silk rope. You carry all the ingredients to turn your existence into joy. Mix them. Mix them. Skillful effort. Skillful effort. Which mind states to restrain and which to nourish? So, if you'll turn in your hymnal to page 1. The refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, a la Betsy Rose. And refuge in the Buddha doesn't need to be a religious undertaking. It's refuge in that in us which is awake. And of what is that awake? It's awake to the way things actually are. So our meditation becomes an exploration rather than a making things happen. And we do it in community. We need friends on this journey. So it's the refuge in being in that which knows, which is awake, consciousness, and the experiences of consciousness, and in the company of our good friends, and actually in the company of all life, of which we are an integral part. So please join in as makes sense for you. Oops. Got all this fancy electronics. Plug it in. Have you got something up there? Good? Good. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Nice. So we're going to do what humans have been doing now for thousands of years. To stop outward activity, to sit still, and turn awareness to the inner life. Turn awareness to the mind itself. There are thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of efforts we could make or things we could attend to. In the training in mindfulness from the Theravadan Buddhist tradition, we're encouraged to really pay attention to the body, to start with the body, because the body is the slowest moving, it is itself utterly impermanent, but for a time at least it's stable, or it recreates itself moment by moment. And so we can use that stability of the body to bring awareness into the present moment. Now, here. So please notice that your body's making contact with the cushion or the chair or the floor. And your clothing is making contact with the body. And there's nothing, we're not trying to make something special happen. We're just paying attention to the facts of sensations. Sometimes in paying attention, I notice that I can become aware of the heartbeat in different parts of the body, the pulse in the arms or the hands or the neck. And you may notice it doesn't take any thinking to be aware of the body. It's just awareness and body sensations. And since the moment of its birth, of your birth, this body has been breathing. So why not pay attention to the sensations of life, of your body breathing in and out? Notice how it breathes. the breath isn't there, and then it begins, and then there's expansion of the chest and abdomen. Then it comes to fullness, and then it declines. And then it's gone. And there's a question of how hard should you effort? How much energy should go into this intention to stay with the breath? Because it is inevitable that the mind will wander. It wanders into the past, into the future. In the midst of a wandering mind, awareness emerges, mindfulness emerges. And then there's this subtle effort to return to the breath. And this tuning of effort, how hard to try, is an art that we develop over time. Most people, at least most people here in the West, Western world, have to learn how to relax about it and to be very gentle. So with great kindness, I invite you now for a while in silence. Abide aware of the breath whenever you can. And notice every time waking up happens, the mind is wandering, and then there's a realization of it. And then come back to the breath. as we practice, we realize that there is no such thing as a distraction or an interruption in practice. Sounds arise and they manifest the same truth as thoughts arising. They're impersonal, they're impermanent, and they don't lead to any kind of lasting satisfaction. They're just sounds. They're just thoughts. They're just body sensations. Everything is singing the same song, which is change. So we don't have to have the optimal monk's cave in order to practice deeply. Just this moment here with this breath and awareness. It's not often that we sit still like this. And when we do, the natural discomfort of the body starts becoming more apparent. And we can use the emergence of that discomfort as a way to deepen our practice and also deepen our capacity in life to bear the difficult and stay conscious. So when discomfort arises, notice it for what it is, which is discomfort. Stay with the breath. If it knocks again, more loudly, more intently, notice it again, deeply. Notice that there may be disliking of it. Come back to the breath. But if the discomfort persists or grows, then we put aside the breath consciously, intentionally, and we take this mystery of awareness and approach the discomfort in a counterintuitive, loving, compassionate way. And this approach isn't to, quote, get rid of it, though that may well be in the mind. The approach is to understand it, to bear with it, to open to it. And we can get closer and closer until we somehow dissolve into this, the pain and the suffering sometimes just disappear. The sensations may persist, but all resistance to it goes away. This is the central strategy or paradigm of this kind of meditation. Opening to everything so that ultimately nothing offends. And it's all rooted in coming home to the breath, the body sitting. One of the mental factors that is essential in our awakening and reducing our suffering is the quality of curiosity. One can practice simply to calm the mind. Excellent stress management strategy. I just want this mind to stop, to leave me alone. Or I want this anxiety to let up, or this depression to lift, or this anger to subside. And while those are noble, partial strategies or goals, equally important is the question, what's going on? What happens in a mind that is anxious or frightened or judgmental, fearful, restless, full of lust or desire or disliking? These are all experiences of the normal human mind. How curious can you become? And fundamentally, there's this experience of a body which is alive and breathing, and awareness, knowing, that which knows. Sometimes when the mind becomes restful, at ease, it becomes possible to be aware of the whole body as a tingling mass of life, including the feet and the legs and the pelvis and torso and arms and hands and neck and head and face. The experiences of life. And within this cloud of life, there's the breathing. What a wonderful place and way to rest in the present moment, breathing in and out. Please now notice where your body is making contact with the chair, or the cushion, or the floor. And notice where else in your body there is the greatest life. Letting awareness open in what you would call your hands and fingers, in the face, in the nose and cheeks and lips. Take a moment to press your lips together, just a tiny bit. Awareness is so sensitive, as is the body. Letting awareness inhabit the orbit of your eye and the sensations in the eye. Maybe let your eye move around a little bit, circle a bit inside its beautifully lubricated socket. And then noticing the intention, the plan, and then ever so delicately willing the eyelid to raise, and so seeing will begin. And notice the birth of seeing. 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 And then if you'd like, you can experiment with letting seeing vanish. Is seeing permanent or impermanent? There are conditions for seeing, without any one of which there's no seeing. Seeing. And then after sitting, most of us, certainly this body, is a little stiff, wants to move. Notice before you move how it wants to move. And then if that moving won't hurt you or some other person, then let yourself be granted that. Just see what it's like to stretch in that fashion, but do it real slowly. Hello to those of you joining us out in internet land. Someone's waving back. Oh no, it's it's Greg. I have good news for you on the seating front. We have 15 more zafus coming and some zabutans. These are the Z words from Zen. There's pads that go on the floor for those of you that would like some of them. We'll have a few of them. And the carpet for the choir loft is going in Monday or Tuesday. And Doug Ross, our treasurer, is researching chairs. So he says there's some really friendly folding chairs that are comfortable. So we should have maybe 15 or 20 of them up there very soon. So that'll make a difference. And the one caveat is that if you go up there, you have to be able to sing in 4 parts, because we'll be having glorious praises to something from up there. For the beauty of the earth. So, there's that baby. So Jim, would you like to take over for some, oh, you want to do announcements first? Why don't you do announcements first? I'll stay for them. I might need to add. You have a question? Oh, would you like this? Yes. Follow the little yellow cord. Yes, here, take this. Oh, here. Doesn't work. I thought it would be like a violin or something. Here. Where the hell is it? Oh, here.
Okay. Here we are. Well, let me just go over the week's activities. It's quite an extensive list. Right after this session here, we'll have one person. I think it's Greg. Is that true? No. Kate is sick. So we have Dharma consultations we're starting around 12:15, and there's 3 20-minute sessions, and you can sign up on a clipboard in the back. But Greg will be in this room over here to my right.
Raise your hand, Greg.
There we go. And then I'm going to be in Beaverton tomorrow night in my home for a sit at 7:30. There's a group that meets here on Tuesday morning. I think that's a full reading group. I don't think they're taking new people right now. It's open. Oh, it's always open. Okay, I thought it was a closed group. All right. And 7 o'clock on Tuesday is Gary. And there's class at 7 o'clock Wednesday. Is that true this week? No. Some weeks there's a class at 7 o'clock. All right. On Thursday, starting this week, there's a 6 o'clock basic mindfulness class with Doug Pullen, and then his ordinary time for starting will continue. 7:30 is an open sit, and okay, so where am I? That's the typical week. Then special things going on. Pablo Das is coming. You want to say something about? Oh, first there's Kevin.
No, Pablo first.
Pablo first. Okay.
I can talk about both. So this Friday, my good friend and Buddhist teacher Pablo Das is coming from Los Angeles. He's going to be teaching on Friday night here, 7 to 9 p.m., and he's going to be doing a talk on the Brahma Viharas. He calls 3 wishes and a reality check, which I mentioned a while back on one of my talks. And then Saturday, he's doing a full day long on trauma here, which is something he kind of specializes in. And then he's filling in for Robert on Sunday here, this morning talk. Pablo is amazing. He's out. He's an activist. He's in his personal work. He deals with people with food issues, with trauma, with addiction, and he got pretty famous after the election. He published an article coming from a gay Buddhist teacher's voice, and it went viral. So I think you even reposted it, I believe. Yeah. So highly recommended. That's this coming weekend. Friday's drop in. Saturday there is registration on our website, and then Sunday, always drop in. And then the next weekend, another friend of mine, Kevin Griffin from the Bay Area, is coming up here. He is going to be doing a day long on Saturday. Again, registration's on the website. He has a new book coming out called Living Kindness, which is kind of a new school approach to metta, loving kindness. So Kevin's just got such a big heart. He's pretty famous for doing a lot of work with Buddhism and the 12 steps. And this new book is not about recovery specific. It's for everyone. So, and then he's filling in on Sunday as well. So the next 2 Sundays, we won't have Robert. We will have guest teachers come support these guest teachers, please. Thanks.
Okay, I have a question about the calendar. It says there's a space set up for the 24th of February for love and something. I can't read my writing here. Is that on? Okay, it's to be announced. All right. So,
1, 2. Doug Pullen and I are going to do a one-day retreat on love and compassion, which includes traditional practices, dancing, and a variety of other heart-opening things. Richard Lang is the 17th of February. Here's where I'll go. I will wax poetic. Richard is coming from England to do a one-day retreat here. He's doing one day here and then one day, and then he's going on to Hawaii. He was here last year and was just amazing. He teaches the headless way, Douglas Harding's perspective. Like in this moment, for instance, as you look at me, do you have a face? Do you believe you have a face? Do you experience a face? I don't think you do. You experience me. Seeing. You are seeing, in fact. And this capacity of knowing, it's that in which we take refuge. That's the Buddha. And Richard is a remarkable teacher, very funny, very engaging. And for the whole day, from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, there's this reminding, be that which is aware. Notice that which is aware. And we have 2 potluck meals. And in the evening is a 3-hour, 2.5-hour, 5 rhythms dance. And it's really quite a transformative day. We had about 60 people last year, and it was very, very well received. So very entertaining, but also very awakening. Richard Lang. This is a hotbed for teachers. It's getting out of control.
and I'm going to be at the Richard Lang thing, so there's not going to be a Qigong workshop in February. It'll be in March again. There was one other, the reason I had Wednesday evening is because there's a nonviolent communication class starting. That's on the 31st. That Doyle, 7 to 9, Wednesday nights with Doyle Banks. And it's a series, yes. It's a. Okay. Do you have anything to say about volunteerism, Ms. Kirsten?
So I'm Kirsten, and I help coordinate volunteers here along with an army of other people. Thanks, Gary. Oh, wow, what a reception. I'm blocking people. Maybe I should do it. Avi doesn't sit down. Okay. So there's so many ways that you can get involved here. Too loud, sorry, okay. There's so many ways you can get involved here, and it's beautiful how this community is growing and how there's so many people filling this space, and so many of you are involved. You can help with things like our beautiful hospitality that happens every Sunday, bring treats, help set up, but there's a lot of other things that you can help with during the week, like vacuuming the Dharma Hall, or there are some other things that I'd like to do that I'd love to have help with, like maybe we could do a volunteer newsletter that spotlights some of our folks that are helping out behind the scenes. So if you have a desire to help and get involved, please do come see me, and I'll talk to you about what kinds of things we need. And it all makes the place run beautifully. Yeah. The last thing I want to say is talent night. Can I mention that, Robert? Sure. Yeah. So we've had a couple of talent nights here in the past year, and there's going to be another one on the 24th, which is the same day as the Love and Forgiveness Retreat, but it'll be after that. February. And that is kind of like grown-up show and tell. So you can do anything, read a poem, share a story, do some music. It doesn't have to be original. And if you just want to come and be a supportive audience member, you don't have to share. You can just be in community that way. So that announcement went out yesterday online, but you can also come see me about that. Thanks.
Okay, and one more announcement is the Donna Bowl in the back is eagerly awaiting your exchange of energy. It's a transformer that sits back there that helps take our practice forward into the next week, the next month, the next decade. 25 years ago, I started putting my energy into a bowl like that with Robert, with the idea that I was benefiting from learning about the Dharma, and I wanted to extend that forward and pay it forward, so to speak. And here I am benefiting from my generosity from 25 years ago. So you can do the same thing. I probably won't be here 25 years ago to check on you, but 25 years from now. But you can pay it forward, whatever benefits you are experiencing from engaging with the Dharma, you can share by supporting this community and enabling it to expand and continue contacting new people and reinforcing all of us old-timers in our newly acquired good habits. So thank you. Don't miss that Dharma bowl in the back.
Let me just draw attention to, and we have something called this, I always want to say the stewardship circle, which is any amount you would like to give per month. You can do that on the website, and that's very helpful for the stability of the financial scene. So, very important. Done?
Okay, I'm done.
I'd like to introduce Wei Pu Li, who inhabits the form of Jim Dalton, for teaching the Qigong. He's from some little-known province in China, and he takes over Jim's body for the next little while.
All righty. So you can join me if you wish by standing up and getting in contact with your feet. So we heard a poem at the beginning from Hafiz saying you have all the ingredients for a bountiful, alive experience of life. There's 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 hands, 2 feet. We have all the ingredients, and then through the tradition of Qigong, we have the opportunity to combine them into a quite a powerful healing tool, which is moving together with other people. We have these mirror neurons, so as we move and give our bodies a chance to flow, then we watch in our peripheral vision all these other lovely beings doing the same thing. And that heals us. It creates a healing field. We create an atmosphere around ourselves of glowing, healing energy. So we start by softening the knees and sinking and rising, sinking and rising. Opening the hands, directing them towards the earth, so both the soles of the feet and the palms of the hands are engaging dynamic energy with the earth. So the earth is feeding us through the soles of the feet, through the palms of the hands. And now we can soften the shoulders by extending and releasing. Noticing how the breath can be worked into this. Breathing in. Releasing what we don't need back to the earth. This dynamic planet takes everything we release and transforms it into flowers, rocks, water. The earth is this amazing, transformative source of energy. It feeds us every time we breathe in, and we contribute to its work every time we breathe out. All right, let's lift and open the chest, make some more room. Inside and outside. I was thinking inside, but I saw you readjust for the outside. And just notice the mood when you open the chest. And then lifting overhead. We paint a rainbow. And again, the images we hold in our imagination may have some effect on our mood and our feelings. How many colors can we paint into this rainbow? Then reaching up for penetrating the clouds and separating the clouds. Sense of agency. We can lift, turn, open. We have just a little bit of a world at the end of our arms. And everything inside this little world can have a cloud-like atmosphere. Or we can get a little more playful and spin a little bit off to one side, push and pull, spinning in the other direction. Notice how the body has this symmetry around a central axis. So not only do the knees have flexibility and fluidity, but the hips, the waist. One shoulder extends, one pulls back to create a flow. And then working with the shoulders some more, we open to the back and give back to the earth. Making room for new energy and then giving back. Just feeling this reciprocal exchange. Working with the earth and working with several dozen people to create a flow. Lifting up, lifting the shoulder. I mean, the whatever that thing is, the heel. Woo! It's one of the dangers of getting in touch with the body. The linguistic ability deteriorates fast. I know there's labels in there, but I don't always get the right one. So this is called, the rising sun in the Chinese label for these movements. And then the next one is gazing at the moon, involves the hips and waist a little bit more. Stretching new muscles you might not have been aware of before. Pressing across, intending to extend to the corner, intending to extend to the other corner. Again, that sense of agency. There's not a lot of things I have control of in my life, but I can intend to ease the tension in my body by stretching slowly, bringing relief to tight muscles, bringing one hand around, focus on the palm, create a contact with the earth with the lower hand, come across, And then create the image of a cloud drifting across the sky. And focus on that upper hand and notice how the rest of the room gets kind of fuzzy. And it appears that the room is spinning, while the eyes are focused on the upper hand. It's representing a cloud drifting across the sky with a shadow underneath. We're not looking at the shadow, but there is a hand moving in coordination with the upper hand. So this miracle of mindfulness, it can be very tightly focused, or it can be wide open and embracing a wide field. And then stepping out, half a step, we splash in the sea, opening the arms, feeling the mood change again. Large, round movements opens our attitude as well as our minds and our bodies. And riding the waves, engaging with the floor in a musical way. Opening the arms, palms up, coming forward. We have a spiral happening with our hands. This is the string section. All right, then we step out to the other side, splash in the sea. Riding the waves. And opening the arms. Back to the center. Feeling the weight even out between the two legs. Make a fist and sink and let the dragon rise from the sea. And then up on the toes, spread the wings and fly with the cranes. What's the mood of that little one? Turning the wheel. We're very entertaining, I think. And we go the other way. Now watch this. You can't do this yet, but when you get to be an adult, you can try this. Just keep practicing. It takes a while. Okay, now that's number 18. We just draw everything in, release what we don't need, renew, release, renew, release. And then coming to stillness. So what we just finished is, I call the Shibashi routine. Yesterday there was a fellow at my workshop who spent a lot of time in China, and he said, "Oh, you mean Shiba Shu?" Okay. Shiba, turns out, is 10 and 8, 18, and Shu is a form or a practice. So a practice of 18 steps that'll open up all of your joints and expand your breathing and calm your nervous system. You can look it up on YouTube under Shiba Shu or Shiba Shi, Form 1, spelling it in an Americanized way, Shiba Shi, Form 1. And many of my students do this every day and maintain a flow in their lives through mindful movement. So let's sink and open to the side and gather all of our experience from this morning and draw it into here and now. And bring your hands together in gratitude for having so much help in our healing process. Thank you very much.
Nah, never accept help. Would you hold this actually? Oh, welcome to Buddhist psychology. All right, put this down. Oh, right. Oh, I see. May I have a functional pen, please? Dark. A marker. Blue. Blue's, let's hope it's... Oh, it's going to work. Yay. Perfect. Okay. How are we doing for time? Good. I like this better, having folks closer. Better. That's all I get is a handshake? All right, that's better. Yeah, right. For those of us with insecure attachment from our childhood neglect. That's, I have a lifetime condition of I call it cuddle deficiency anemia, which would only really work for some of you who are older. You remember iron deficiency anemia, Carter's little liver pills? Remember that? Anyway, that's not the topic of today's Dharma talk. Just for orientation, whoa, that's pretty good. Look at that. The Eightfold Path, which is the way of life that was taught by the Buddha, with wise understanding, which really looks at our worldview, the worldview through which we live, and there's 2 or 3 talks in the last few months that I've done on the aspects of that. And then wise intention. If I have a worldview that includes the fact that everything's impermanent, that my actions have great importance karmically, then how shall I operationalize this worldview? The intention is, or the teaching is, if I intend to be a person who is wise, loving, compassionate, generous, and patient, that results in a different kind of life and evolution than if my goal is net worth, me over others, and so on. So if the intention is to become really wise, loving, compassionate, and connected, then there are certain actions which need to happen. With my speech, I'm getting lost here. Moral and ethical behavior. That's right. Behavior. And my livelihood. So these are my actions in the world, and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And this, I've inappropriately drawn that line too thick. There's 3 sections to this model, usually the way it's presented. There's the wisdom section, the behavioral, moral and ethical behavior section, and then there's the section on mental training, which is these which are effort, mindfulness, that's better, and concentration. Phew, a person could get quite high up here off these things. It's not a very nice smell. So where I'm going to be drilling in today is in this section on wise effort. I come back to the map often because when I discovered the Dharma and then came back to Canada in 1972, I had no idea how all these concepts fell together. I had little bits of them, but there wasn't anywhere that I could find. There wasn't the internet. And I went to, there was a professor in Toronto, a guy called A.K. Warder, who had written a definitive history on Buddhism. And I went to meet him at the University of Toronto, but he was of no help to me at all, because I wasn't interested in history, I was interested in meditation. And so I cobbled together the map over 10 or 15 years, and then I found some books that were like, oh, here's the map. And I love maps to begin with, but that's one of the reasons I come back to the map, to help you understand this is where this fits into the model. For some people that would be very helpful, and others it will be irrelevant. So, effort. I just realized I have a prop for this that I haven't used in years. I'm going to roll this down there. It's going to bump. Just push it around from one person to another. That lovely massive ball is a marvelous demonstration of Newton's first law. Right? A body with mass in motion tends to remain in motion in the same direction until it's acted upon by an outside force. Interesting to think that that notion was the foundation of the scientific revolution and then industrialization, figuring that out. Plus some other cool, very simple things he figured out. We're the same. Our characters tend to remain in motion. We go through this incredible personality training as small children. We take on the values and the facial gestures and the emotional gestures, the beliefs of our family of origin. And then it gets a little bigger of the school system we belong to or the nation state we belong to, and we become persons with momentum. And if we don't act upon that personality consciously, we live out what Carl Jung called a fate. If we start paying attention to it, then we live out, in Jung's terms, a destiny, because we start to notice certain moods, thoughts, actions, ways of thinking lead toward more suffering, and some lead to less suffering, more happiness. It's one of the great privileges. I don't know. If we lived in traditional culture where we never left our village, the chances of individuation diminish remarkably. There's many benefits to living in that small village. But the fact that we can actually change course in our lives, we can have radical changes of understanding of the way things are. That possibility then opens us up to really big change. It's pretty common in traditional spiritual world practices. People leave home and they go to the monastery, they get a new name, and they live quite a different life. That's not necessary for spiritual development, but we do have to. There's a classic part in the life story of the Buddha is that he was Siddhartha. He was a pretty ordinary person, though mythologically anyway, protected from all suffering and quite well off. And he discovered that he was really unhappy and suffering. And he saw a wandering mendicant when he saw messengers from the Hindu deities of sickness, old age, and death. And then he saw this person walking very quietly and calmly through the landscape, and he decided, this is what I have to do. And they call it the great going forth, when he left his ordinary life and then devoted his life to spiritual practice. And we can hear that as, oh golly, maybe I have to leave my life and go become a monk or a nun. But it's more useful to think of it as, hang on, Robert is hurrying. That's no help, is it? Robert's going to take a deep breath. That's better. Much better. So he did the great going forth. And for us, when we do our going forth, it can mean simply, I start to take my inner life seriously. It becomes important that I give myself 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever, per day to actually meditate. It's important that I dedicate some of my reading to something that supports what I want to do. It's helpful to join a community, to do something different in one's life in order to change the direction of the bowling ball. Something I heard years ago of when they send probes out to the outer planets, after they've been on their way for a year or something, a long time, they discover that it's off target. It's not going to insert itself into orbit around Saturn or whatever. And then they have these little thrusters on the side, and they press with 20 pounds of force. I mean, it's nothing. Here's this multi-100-pound device, and this thruster comes on for 17 and a half seconds, goes, and the insertion point at the far end is 1,000,000 miles different. Mid-course corrections. And mid-course corrections make a vast difference. And every time we intervene in our own consciousness and cultivate something wholesome or restrain something not so wholesome, it's a mid-course correction that has gigantic outcomes over time. So there's this right effort. And I have a couple of things I want to read from the Pali Canon, which is the earliest writing down of the Buddha's teachings. Which can, where'd it go? Oh, I know. Which we could understand as the truth of what the Buddha said, but I find it much more helpful to think of it as this is what was recorded 300 years after the death of the Buddha, and there is in here incredible wisdom, so how shall we access it? And then it comes down to each one of, we are the expert. Each one of us is the expert on this path, and does it work for you? Do these concepts make sense? All right. I had it queued. And there it is. Okay. So there's two passages. Let me see. Should I do both? We'll do one and see. There are 4 right exertions. What are these 4? There is the case where a person generates desire, endeavors, arouses persistence, upholds and exerts intent for the sake of the non-arising of evil, unskillful qualities that have not yet arisen. It's colorful language, isn't it? If it's going to be a doctrinal source, it has to have colorful language, I think. For the sake of abandoning of evil, unskillful qualities that have arisen, for the sake of arising of skillful qualities that have not yet arisen, and for the maintenance, non-confusion, increase, plenitude, and development and culmination of skillful qualities that have arisen, these are the right exertions. That'll be on the test, of course. You have to be able to quote that to get in. And this is further on that. There are these 4 exertions. Which 4? The exertion to guard, the exertion to abandon, the exertion to develop, and the exertion to maintain. I might do. I missed a step, at least one. I understand this training of the mind to be an ecological process. That we are a living system, and we are integrally interconnected with the earth, and therefore with the cosmos, of which the cosmos are within us, yes. And so the laws of ecology fit us. And a lot of the vocabulary the Buddha used were like farming analogies. If you want something to grow in you, then plant that seed. If you want to become more loving, practice being more loving. If you want to practice being more generous, then be more generous. If you want to become less angry, then when anger arises, see it clearly and don't act it out. Restrain it, transcend it, transform it one way or another. If greed arises, then restrain it. So what this passage on skillful effort is saying, as I understand it, is these are ways to work with mental phenomena, because working with our mental phenomena is the way we move toward happiness. Right? It's implied in this whole training approach, but to be aware of it, I think, is useful. The Buddhist teachings say, if you want to be happy, work with your mind. You can be strong and physically fit and, have the body of an Olympian and so on, and that doesn't lead to happiness. Did you see that great article by Phelps, the Olympic swimmer? Michael Phelps? He's speaking publicly about the fact he's really glad he didn't kill himself after the Olympics, because he was so depressed, and all that driving to get his gold medals, he was a wreck. And it's so great for him to be coming for someone of his stature, and he was arrested for driving under the influence and also marijuana infraction. And he says, why was I doing that? I was so desperately depressed. In terms of wise understanding, he was following one of those trajectories that I see in our kids in school. If you want to play basketball, you have to play 7 days a week. You can't have anything just be a game. But he was so caught in that he came close to suicide. And his success, you'd think, well, Michael Phelps, he must be so happy. Well, he wasn't happy at all. So, what do we cultivate? That's what this is about. 4 exertions. Which 4? The exertion to guard, the exertion to abandon, the exertion to develop, the exertion to maintain. And what is the exertion to guard? Here is the case where a person, on seeing a form with the eye, does not grasp at any variation of which, if he were to dwell without restraint. Oh, this gets very complicated. Maybe I can't do it that way. I'm going to just try to read it, just like it is. What is the exertion to guard? There is the case where a person, on seeing a form, an object with the eye, does not grasp at any theme or variations by which, if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the eye, evil, unskillful qualities such as greed or distress might assail him. He practices with restraint. He guards the faculty of the eye. He achieves restraint with regard to the faculty of the eye. Similarly with ear, nose, tongue, body, and intellect. This is called the exertion to guard. And this could be very complicating, couldn't it? So, put it down. I like to do them in a slightly different order. If we take it as a truth, there are unwholesome states. There are states that if I follow them and act upon them, I'll get in trouble, right? I will create harm. For example, anger, jealousy, greed, desire, aversion. When those states arise, and I always think of this example. The text has come in and it's poked a button and there's irritation and I'm ready to fire back the nasty text, right? Or someone's cut you off in traffic or something. And one sees this aversion, this disliking, this desire to strike out. What should I do? The traditional understanding is, first off, be aware of it. Notice it's arising. And secondly, don't act. Restrain the state. For instance, in comes angry text, or somehow you get an angry message in, and the anger comes up, and then you can notice, well, this is a lot of anger here. And then there's many practices we can do. for instance, about the other person, to have some compassion for the person. Why might she have sent this text or he have sent this text? Or I can take it another step into remembering this person is living a very fragile life, and they're not going to be here long on the planet, and they're caught in delusion, so I don't think I have to rev myself up in order to meet them in that. I could meet them in compassion or love. So there's lots of strategies. How do I not act? So that's the first of the 4 exertions or efforts, is when an unwholesome state arises, restrain it. Lots of examples of that in the realm of compulsions and addictions. I can talk about this because it's one of my more benign compulsions. Mother's taffy biscuits. I really like them. And they're really not great for me. And whenever they're in the house, it's a challenge because I know they're there. They whisper to me. It's like, I'm in the cupboard. So how to moderate one's intake of something that has a compulsive pull to it? Well, one is to observe the arising of the desire, the image. Oh, mother's taffy, that'd be really good with tea. And then one can decide, well, that's a desire that I don't wish to pursue. And fortunately, it's not one that leads to divorces or catastrophes, but you can see it as the paradigm. So then one can notice it, and then it's a desire. Since I can see it and know it as a desire, where is it in the body? What salivation is happening as I talk about it? It's crazy. This is, yeah. Anybody else salivating? Mother's taffy cookies. Oddly enough, the last 2 things of them that I've purchased were not baked enough. They were a little... Anyway. But one can practice renunciation, and it's essentially, don't go there. So that's one effort. Another effort is the effort that when something is not up, one can practice what's called restraint of the senses, which means to be mindful what's happening at the sense doors, what's happening at the mind, and to watch the first little niggling, yoo-hoo, cookies in the cupboard, or I could have a drink, or the first little emergence of anger, or fear, or jealousy. That if we're really attentive, and particularly if our practice has gotten to a place where we drop into great ease, we notice how these, quote, unskillful states they just poke their little head up. And then since they're so small, it's very easy to say, no thanks, not going there. That's the effort to, it's the guarding of the senses with the intention to not allow the unwholesome states to blossom. Is this making sense? It really is it's in the gardening metaphor. I never do this, but one should. Every morning, one should go out to the garden and take 5 minutes to pull the weeds. Because then the garden would not turn into what my garden turns into. I go away on a retreat and I'm gone for 10 days. It's set. I do micro irrigation. It's set to water every 2 days or something, and everything grows like crazy. It's such a pain to go in then and fight the weeds. If I did it regularly, they wouldn't be such a big deal. So there's the effort to restrain the unwholesome and the effort to keep them well restrained. So then that's 2. And then there's the other 2, which are the effort to bring into being. And this is where we have such a tremendous creative capacity because, it seems like we do. Karma, the Buddha said karma, the teaching on karma is the light of the world because our actions have results. And so what seeds should we plant? And the Do you know why it's really a pain to talk with Buddhists? It's difficult and boring to talk to Buddhists. They always speak with a list. So here's this list. The 7 Enlightenment Factors. Speaking of which, Gregory did a masterful, the best I've ever seen actually, talk on the 7 Enlightenment Factors 6 months ago or so. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend it. Very thorough and clear. There's mindfulness, which is this remarkable quality of remembering to be awake, to be here. Mindfulness is key, and then we can also cultivate curiosity, energy, persistence, joy, delight, bliss, concentration, tranquility, and equanimity. These are all mental capacities. They're like muscles. If I take this bowl and turn my arm just the right way so that I isolate this muscle, I couldn't do it for very long, but if I did this for 5 minutes a day, I'd have a giant muscle before long. Probably visits to the physical therapist too. But if I cultivate mindfulness with some regularity, then there's more mindfulness. If I cultivate curiosity, what's going on? What's happening in my practice? I'd become more curious. If I cultivate energy, effort, sustained effort, the capacity to have stamina in my practice, then I would have more stamina, and so on. So these are the key mental states that we want to plant. And then there's the fourth category, which is when a wholesome state is arising spontaneously, or when you discover it to have arisen, stay with it. If you get to the end of your meditation someday, and you find yourself in really a delightful, loving, blissful, or conscious state, why not sit for another 20 minutes? Why not make use of that? The fact that that's there, then, or if you see, you're in the community somewhere and you see some need arise and you have a moment of compassion, and maybe there's even something you could do, an act of generosity you could do. If you're guarding the senses, you'll notice that impulse arise, and then you can quickly notice, is this skillful? Is this morally, ethically okay? Is there any legal problem with this? And then do it. So there's this acting on internal phenomena, ideas, images, impulses, and the mental factors, and restraining some and encouraging others. Simply having the intention to be mindful is one of the most influential, heavy karmas that we could possibly do, because mindfulness brings with it everything wholesome. If we're mindful and hating, it feels crappy. And we can't get away with it. Ruth Dennison, my teacher Ruth, picture over there, passed away almost 3 years ago now. She used to say, once you have the Dharma, you can no longer get away with yourself. So you start doing some sneaky little something, or being a little dishonest here, or a little, no one will notice. And there's a part of you that of us that really notices. It's like, well, a little slipper here. So I want to read that poem again. Hello out there. I just remembered you again. From Hafiz, Sufi mystic. You have all the genius to build a swing in your backyard for God. That sounds like a hell of a lot more fun. Let's start laughing, drawing blueprints, gathering our talented friends. I will help you with my divine lyre and my drum. Hafiz will sing 1,000 words you can take into your own hands like golden saws and silver hammers, polished teakwood, strong silk rope. You carry all the ingredients to turn your existence into joy. Mix them. Mix them. there's another really important piece, if I can pull it together. Classic image from the Buddha. So, it's a G. If I were to loosen this up, not very melodic. If I were to crank on it, it doesn't fit. But somewhere in between there is just the right tuning. It's still not quite right, but you know the point. You get the point. So a monk approached the Buddha and said, how hard should I try? And he said, you were a musician in your former life, before you became a monk. You know about tuning strings. You know about training and making enough effort. So in your formal meditation, though it's also true in the meditation in daily life, we experiment and we try really hard, right? I'm going to control my breath, my awareness, and bring it back to the breath. And I'm going to really dig in and grit my teeth, and I'm going to see what happens. And I'm going to sit here for an hour no matter what. I'm going to see what happens, and then we see what happens with that. And then I'm going to just kind of slouch here and not do anything. I'm going to see what happens with that. And through doing that many, many times, we discover there's a quality of effortless effort. And there's a knowing of, right now, I need to work at some concentration right now. This is a moment to lower the control rods into the equation, or into the reactor. Or maybe I need to do some loving kindness mantra practice. Or maybe there's so much agitation right now, sitting meditation isn't the right thing, and I should do walking meditation. So we learn, that's called upaya, or skillful means. But this knowing how much effort to make is, it's an art. And we develop it over time. And we also, it can help us very much at times to have a conversation with a competent teacher who knows us enough to know what to do. Ruth Dennison helped me on several occasions. The first major intervention she did in my practice was to tell me I had learned to sit for 3 or 4 hours, 2 or 3, 4 hours, long periods of time sitting in meditation, and it looked like this from the outside, I think. But I was sitting a long time, and I knew that I was getting ahead of everybody, because the longer you sat, the more meditative you were, I thought. And I also stayed up late at night, and because I had this idea. My personality had been trained, you have to try really hard. And if you don't try really hard, you're going to fail. And then no one will love you. And then, so striving was really at the core of this personality. And Ruth spotted me, and she came and shook my shoulder one morning early on the first or second retreat I did with her. And she said, you are always tired. Stay in bed tomorrow morning. Stay in bed. And the next morning, everyone got up, the bell rang, and everyone got up. And I knew I was losing, right? I was falling behind the pack. And I went back to sleep till almost noon. And then I went to the meditation hall, and something different happened. I was actually conscious. But I had gone some years, big retreats and no guidance, and I had gone some years striving way too hard. So experiment. And one thing I hope will come out of this talk today is you'll recognize how hard, for instance, my intention is to stay with the breath. How tense is that? Is it, I've got to get to the breath. And is it then, oh, my mind wandered, what's wrong with me? I really am a crappy meditator, and that whole self-hatred thing. Or are you practicing with curiosity, which is, what's happening here? How hard am I trying? How much effort am I putting into concentration? And how much is the mind wandering? It's a very different feel to be curious. Maybe that's, hang on, what's that other thing? Yeah, I'll read you this. At some point, meditation becomes simply sitting and watching the show. Right? You don't have to be working to be with your breath at all anymore, because awareness simply is abiding in the present and thoughts arise and there's no need to respond to any of them. So in that regard, let's hear this one. From Jack McCarthy. When you were talking about the straitjacket, I had a flash. I was in one, and a great magician, Houdini maybe, or maybe God, disguised as Houdini, was about to teach me to escape. I knew with utter certainty that his first word would be, relax. So, what's the middle path between too slack and too tight? Perhaps it's relaxing into the present moment, which is sometimes really hard because the present moment could be very painful or could be very filled with desire. But the curiosity helps guide us. And the capacity also to have 7 enlightenment factors, bliss, tranquility, concentration, equanimity, to have a mind in which you can rest in ease. That then makes how much effort to make clear. So, questions, comments, complaints? Not all at once, please. Please, can you take it down to Lev?
When I think about restraint, I have the image of a militant police officer tackling a hooligan, handcuffing him.
What? Say it again?
Restraint.
Yes.
It sounds like a police officer tackling a hooligan and handcuffing him and throwing him into the back of his squad car. Is there, I'm sure there are, I was wondering if you could say a few words about compassionate restraint.
That's a good word, hooligan. Haven't heard that in a long time. I'm thinking, it's interesting, the thing that comes to mind. My teacher, Munindra, in India, there's a sweet, an Indian sweet called gulab jamun. If you've been in Indian restaurants, you've seen them. It's milk that's been simmered, and then they make balls of it. And then they deep fry it, and then they stick it in sugar syrup. And they're fantastic. Why am I pre-diabetic? So they're really good. And Munindra was a young man on retreat, and he was lusting after gulab jamuns. And one day he finally said, all right. And he took himself to the market, and he ate a lot of them. And he said he never had to restrain himself again because he got the message. So there's no single strategy. Sometimes it really makes sense. If an action is not going to harm us or another morally, ethically, then maybe it makes sense. It does make sense. Let me do this mindfully. I actually teach people how to stop smoking or to change their smoking by learning how to smoke mindfully. To make that tobacco is the sacred herb. There's no more sacred substance on the earth, according to the shamans. And so to take your tobacco and you make your cigarette, or you get your cigarette ready, and then you tap it and you do your ritual, and then you only smoke, just smoke, mindfully. And to watch that, oh, I'm a bad person, I should stop this, that this is dirty, blah, blah, blah. And to notice that and to love that. And to do that which you've previously been at war with yourself, and to do it very consciously. So sometimes the skillful action or the skillful effort might be, I want to do this. The mind is wanting to do this. I think I won't. Just to see what happens. I'm going to not do this. But not, I'm a bad person and I have to stop this, but what could I learn by fasting from this for a little while? So it's really based in experimentation and kindness. Is that making sense? Is that addressing the hooligan question? There's harsh renunciation, and there's loving renunciation. And I have the belief that true spiritual discipline means doing that which one really, 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 really knows. That's what I really want. And, for instance, many people struggle with having a daily practice. Did you notice at the end of the 45 minutes that we sat today, the state you were in? It was often when I ask the question, who feels better right now than you did when you walked in? And it's almost universal. We all feel better. So you know that. And you know that taking 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour every day would feel really good and would transform your life. And I propose that down deep inside, that's what you really, 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 really want. But we get blinded by the baubles. We get blinded by the responsibility, by the entertainments, by the stimulation. And so if we pause long enough, what is it I really, really want? Then renouncing, watching TV or looking on Facebook, or renouncing isn't then grabbing the hooligan. It's, I came to my senses. What do I really, really want? I really, really want to just be here in the beauty of my own being. Or I really want to be here with this fear, anger, loneliness, whatever is up, because I know that if I turn toward that, I won't suffer so much. That making sense? But what is it we really, really, really want? I have the great privilege, and I thank you to everyone who's taking care of the shop here while I'm gone. Avi is going to be here. I'm leaving this afternoon for a little cabin at the beach without my computer, and I'm having 6 or 7 days of silence and disengagement, and of meditation time. So I'm really, it's very clear to me, what do I really, really, really want? I really, really, really want to not have to act outwardly for some days, to see what happens. So to sit and walk and to watch the show. Haven't done this since, it's way too long since I've done it, so I'm quite looking forward to it. And probably there will be some interesting challenges. It's not, who knows? Right now it doesn't feel like that, but you never know. 2 days or 3 days into a retreat, there could be something significant emerging through. But, so I invite you, what is it you like this afternoon, what do you really, really, really want to do? And to figure that out, one has to push aside, well, what that person would be happy if I did, or this person would be happier if I did, or what some idealized self would be happy with. But what is it I really want to do? Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me play this role, which is so good for me. And I look forward to seeing you. I may well be here next Sunday, or I may stay on retreat a little longer. I haven't decided whether I'll come back for next weekend or not. I suppose it depends on how hard it is, right? Friday morning, I'm out of here. Somehow I think that'll be just fine. So thank you very much. Please let's make a big circle. And we'll welcome the kids in, and then we'll come and have some tea and coffee and goodies. I take refuge. Look at those tits. Hi. Wow. That's a person. See how smart I was? I saw what it was. All right. May I hold a hand? Would you like to hold my hand? All right. Okay. I'm just going to touch the floor here instead, okay? Come on. Great. Hi, Tara. So it's one thing to train our own mind, our own heart-mind. It's another thing, and interlocking, that we're in community and we can care for each other. And so if you're holding a hand, feel that left hand and give it a little squeeze. It's amazing how much communication we can have simply through a squeeze. It's like, I know you're there. And then if you could think of what would be the most loving thing you could wish for this person, which also means what's the most loving pattern you could whirl through the synapses in your own brain. So touching, wishing well, and then to the person on your right, squeezing that hand a little bit. Wish them well. There are unwieldy children here. Wish this person well on the right. And then we can engage them in song. Who is going to sing? You too. Yay. Okay. So get together. All right.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yay. Thank you. That can actually break a microphone. So let's not do that. All right. Got a little energy going here today. So the next thing is to think of a wish, and then everyone breathe in. Everybody in the outer circle gets to do it too. Breathe in on the count, and then we're going to blow out the candle. 1, 2. Now we have to blow out the virtual candle. 1, 2, 3, blow. Excellent. Yay. Thank you all. You did. Great. Thanks for being here.